Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to convert a WR250R to the no longer available WR250X, or at least put some Supermoto mods on it. I've had this bike since 2010, it's 2008, and since then I've put over 18,000 miles on it. I enjoy riding it on the trails, but I have other bikes for that, so a lot of times I take it to work and I'm tired of wearing out knobbies, so what I did was I bought some Supermoto tires, put them on, and I really enjoy riding the bike. So the WR250 will pretty much last forever, so it's a worthy investment to have dirt tires and street tires and wheels. With that, I'll get to show you what you need to do and the procedure to convert it. Alright, so the first thing you need to do is head over to your toolbox, make sure you have the right tools. What you'll need is an 8mm wrench, 10mm wrench, you'll need a 22mm socket for the front axle, you'll need a 27mm socket for the rear axle, you'll need a nice big screwdriver. What that'll do is you'll be able to spread the brake pads with that. You'll need a little parts container to put your nuts and bolts in so you don't lose them. I prefer the chicken wrap container from Chick-fil-A. It's great. You don't get in trouble from robbing takeout containers from the kitchen for leftovers. And the last part is optional. Your beer of choice to pass the time. So, that said, let's get started on the parts for the motorcycle. Alright, what we have here are the Supermoto tires and wheels. They are Warp 9. The front is a 3.5 by 17. The rear is a 4.25 by 17. I purchased this kit already assembled. When it was shipped to me, it had the tires, tubes mounted, balanced. The front also had the stock size rotor, and the rear also had the stock size rotor and the 43-2 sprocket, which is stock. I like to keep them the same so when you swap them back and forth, you don't need to adjust the chain. You can get the oversized rotor in the front, and I'm sure a lot of people prefer that, but as far as the street riding that I do, I'm not that aggressive, so I like to keep things the same so that I need the bracket to extend the caliper for the larger rotor when I do the conversion. So as you can see, these are pretty much ready to bolt on. You've got the rotor. Here you've got the sprocket. Rotor on the other side. It's already bearings installed, so it's pretty much a straightforward swap. So there you have it, ready for install. Alright, now when it comes to the fork guards, these are optional. You can purchase a set for the WR250X, which has a lower cutout to fit the larger Supermoto wheels. Or you can actually cut out the stock ones, but I'm kind of particular, so I purchased the X model fork guards. They're, I think, about $14 a piece, so for under $30, you can buy the ones that fit without cutting the originals. So I'm going to hold it up. I don't know how much you can see in this video, but where your brake cable is, you can see the mount on the black one, which is for the WR250X versus the R. The significance here is these stickers that I purchased were actually for the X model. So here on the stock R model guard, you can see the cutout for the sticker for the brake bracket is a little bit lower. And as you can see, the dirt tires are higher, and where the curve for the brake line is, it still clears the tire. Problem is, if you use these R stock guards with the Supermoto tires, the brake is high and this bulge will actually hit the tire. So that's why I chose to buy the new fork guards, which lowers this, still clears the tire, and the best part about it is, when you purchase the X model guards, you can use them with both the dirt and the Supermoto tires. So you never have to change them once you purchase them. Okay, so we're going to start by removing the front wheel. Going to remove the stock 21-inch dirt wheel. So we're going to remove the axle nut first. Drop it into our little parts takeout container. Going to want to use your 10mm wrench. Loosen the front axle clamps, both sides. You don't have to take them out, you can just loosen them. And then, I like to cheat by using a rubber hammer. Just bang that axle out easier. Okay, then we remove the wheel and the axle. You'll want to take out the spacers on each side. I like to keep them on the side they came out of. Then the next step, you can use your 8mm wrench and remove the fork guards. Use your 10 to take the axle clamp, or the brake hose clamp off. And this would be a good time to use your flat screwdriver to spread your brake pads so that you can get that rotor in easily. So now I want to take the time to show you that this is the R fork guard. I'm going to grab the X fork guard to show you the difference. Here you can see the differences in the cutout. Right here is a higher cutout. On the X model it's lower. This is to clear the tire. If you were to retain the R model, you would cut it right here, simply cut it. But as you can see, there's a difference in the height of the brake clamp bracket as well. Give them a little, not over tight. These are aluminum threads, very small, so just snug will do it. We'll go to the other side. Good part is when the axle's not in, you can easily rotate the fork legs. So at this point, you can take your brake clamp bracket, remount, you can note the previous clamp was here. Now, we straighten the fork legs, and we're ready to install the new front wheel. Okay, now we're going to install the front wheel. Put in your wheel spacers, right and the left side as before. Insert the tire between the fork legs. This will be a little tighter than your dirt wheels. And it takes a little more patience to align it. Sure you get your rotor between the brake pads first. You'll fight with it a little bit like I am. But with a little patience, you'll get it in there. Okay, so take your axle, and I always put a little bit of anti-seize on there. A lot of people use grease, but I like anti-seize because it doesn't come off your fingers, it won't come off your axle either. So watch you don't drop your spacer like I did. Insert the axle. And once I put the axle in, I use a rubber hammer. I tap it lightly. Makes it easier to get through. Reinstall your axle nut. What I like to do is tighten the axle nut, and then slightly back off so it's a little more than finger tight. Keep your clamps loose. Go up on the top of the bike and rock it on the stand, slightly pushing on the forks. And what that'll do is make sure that every time your fork legs are straight. They're not warped and you're not tightening the axle with the fork tube slightly turned. That'll actually center them. Then, get your wrench, tighten the axle bolt, and go through and tighten your clamps. Okay, the last step, make sure you go up to your front brake and you pump it. As you can see, when you spread those, the caliper so you can get the rotor in easily, there, your brake pads spread. You want to pump them up before you take off. Takes about 7 or 8 pulls. Put your brake pads back where they belong. Got your new front wheel on. Brakes work. So there's the front installed. Now, I'm going to go to the rear. Okay, here we are at the back of the bike. We're going to do the rear tire now, rear wheel change. So, since we're using the stock 43 sprocket size, on both wheel sets, we don't have to alter the chain adjustment, which is the reason I kept them the same. But just loosen the rear axle. Remove the nut, washer, chain block. And what I like to do is push the axle in a little bit and take the chain block on the opposite side and simply push it out a little bit so that it's not resting against the adjuster. And then what you can do, you can just simply push the axle forward and you can remove the chain easily, so you have the slack. So then what you can do is you just rest the chain on the swing arm and you don't have to deal with it, don't have to remove it, don't have to touch it. Makes it easy. As long as this block is free from the adjuster and you slide it out a little, you can push the wheel all the way up and get the slack you need to remove the chain. Okay, so the next step, pull the axle out. Put it aside, pull your wheel straight out, remove your spacers, take your new wheel, roll it over, get your screwdriver, spread your brake pads. And honestly, with the fatter tire, it's a challenge to squeeze it into the swing arm between the brake caliper, swing arm, and the chain guide, but you'll probably get the method down easier than I did. So I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to fight with it. So I'm going to put in the spacers, lift the wheel in, squeeze it through. All right, I give up. Okay, so now at this point, we have our axle in, we've got our rotor into the brake pads, caliper aligned. We're going to take our wheel, we're going to push it up, and keep your fingers out. Put the chain back on the sprocket. Take your axle block and pull it back. And we're going to tighten up the axle bolt. Okay. And tighten up your axle block. Take your hand, pull up the chain. That'll pull the axle in close, tight to the adjusters. So pull up the chain, tighten the axle nut. Make sure your wheel spins free. Don't forget, right here, you want to tap your rear brake. Tighten up the caliper. There. Make sure your wheel stops. You want to move those brake pads in tight. And there you have it. I'll give you a view in a minute once I take it off the stand, but our job is done. Okay, there is a few optional steps. You can also change the kickstand to the X model, which you can see it's about, I don't know, it's about 3/4 of an inch shorter, maybe an inch, but I'll show you how to change that as well. So what you want to do, first step, to get a vice grip, make sure you don't get a blood blister, because I always get them. Pull the spring off, move the retainer forward, take a 8mm hex wrench, 14mm box end, and you can loosen the kickstand bolt. It's a lock nut on the other side, so it takes a while to get it hand tight. Move the nut washer. You can remove the kickstand bolt, remove the kickstand. The shorter one on, make sure you don't lose the little spacer that's in the frame. The washer back on, lock nut. Okay, here's your kickstand. Put the spring retainer back on, pin. Pull the spring over the kickstand, and there you go. Kickstand's changed. Okay, so what we'll do now is I will take it off the stand and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, here's the finished product. Here's the WR250R with Supermoto wheels installed. As you can see, everything looks good. You can tell, here's the front brake line, clears the tire, plenty of clearance. Retain the stock bracket. The brake cable's flexible, so it's no problem to mount it lower, clears the tire. The bike sits about an inch lower than it does with the stock dirt tires on it. You'll also notice that since the tires are the same size, 17-inch, you'll notice that the front, when you ride the bike, feels like it's a little lower than it was previously. That you'll notice there's a bigger difference between the dirt tires front and rear. I stacked them back to back. You can see that the front tire is considerably higher. This makes the front end higher than the rear. So when you actually ride the bike, you will notice that. I felt it right away, but you know, I'm pretty picky about setup. But it's fine. No big deal. The stock WR250X came that way. But you will notice that. I definitely recommend the lower kickstand. It's optional, but I didn't like the way it sat. So there is one other optional thing you might want to take into consideration, and that's what's called a speedo healer. If you have a WR250R, you'll know that when you change the gearing, the speedometer is definitely not correct. There's a transmission sensor that sends a signal to the stock Yamaha odometer. When you change the gearing, the speedometer will be off considerably, and so will your odometer. So what I've done was I purchased a speedo healer, and I mounted it under the seat. And you can see it right there. And what it does is it has two settings, and I put in the adjustment for the stock wheels and tires with a 43 tooth sprocket, and I also put in a setting for the Supermoto tires with a 43 tooth sprocket. And this way I can just flip between the two settings when I change the wheels and tires, and that makes my speedometer back to accurate. So I definitely recommend that mod as well. So, okay, I think that's about it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I probably fumbled a lot more, but it's hard to do work and video at the same time. But hope you enjoyed the video, and lots of safe riding.